We're now in a place in which that we're seeing the continuation of old franchises, or we're seeing those very same franchises get a second life. But what should that extra life for them look like? I mean, should it just be an updated version of the original with better graphics, voice acting, and writing? Or is there an opportunity to take an old template to say something new? We're talking about Tomb Raider. What's up, everyone, and welcome to 3VO, where we're all on the same team. I'm your host for today, Jordan.
And I'm your other host, Brendan.
And if you are new here, we are just two big old nerds that just love games so much, and we just have to keep yelling about it. So if you share that same over-enthusiasm for video games that we do, this is definitely the place for you. We're going to be talking about the 2013 reboot for Tomb Raider today. But until we get into all that, and once I get my verbiage back down here again.
Once you figure out how to speak
Once I figure out how to talk again.
Yeah.
Brendan,
why don't I take over?
Why don't you take over for a little bit? I got to work some stuff out today, apparently, with my brain and my mouth.
Welcome back is what Jordan is trying to say.
Very, very much so, yes.
Yeah, we're back again. I feel like the last 5 episodes have been like, we're back.
I promise you we're back this time.
This time, we're really back. We really mean it.
We really mean it this time.
Cut to a year from now. No, I'm just kidding. It has been a while. A lot of stuff has been happening in my world. Just to update you theatrically, I've done a couple of shows, and I have just recently been hired to choreograph a show at the local college. So I am getting sweet American dollar bucks to
that's so cool.
to choreograph a show, and I'm over the moon. The show is very near and dear to my heart. It's called Alice by Heart. Look it up, and I'm so excited to choreograph for it.
I'm so excited for you for this gig in particular. I've loved that you've just been like getting so many more like gigs in theater in general lately.
Yeah.
And it has been a lot of stuff that is like very much in your wheelhouse in terms of like dance and performance and stuff like that. But like you getting to do choreo for a show, it's so specifically cool for you.
Just getting paid for a show.
Truly, there's definitely that as well.
Cries. Yeah. Aside from that, I just work a whole lot, and I crochet now.
Oh my god, we should have kept one thing for you to be able to show for the people who watch the audio, because there's so awesome. Yes,
hold
producer
on.
Caitlin,
our off
gonna try to
producer here. Toss her in.
Yeah.
So here's a couple of things that I've crocheted. They're brother and sister, I think, or brothers. I don't know. I haven't decided.
Yeah.
The little one is Clem, which you named.
I did name Clem. That's right.
I love Clem so much. I don't know the big one's name. But yeah, I've been getting into amigurumi, which is the crocheted stuff fees like this. Mm-hmm. I also I did a dice bag.
Yes.
A Bulbasaur dice bag.
The dice bag is excellent as
pouch. And like a couple of blankets and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so great. It's so fun. And then you get cute. I mean, look at them.
And also, nobody can tell us except these are so soft.
Yeah.
They're so unbelievably cute and
smooth.
soft. I love this so much.
Yeah. I'm having great fun. And I've got like commissions now. They are just our desk turtles.
They're part of the set now. I've decided.
Okay.
They're just here now.
Yeah, no, it's super fun. It's kind of replaced like endless scrolling on my phone.
That's awesome.
So it's it's nice. Yeah, it's a nice habit to have replaced.
Instead of just sitting there on like TikTok and seeing everything like that's wrong and sad
seeing everything that's on fire. Yeah.
I need to find that extra hobby that keeps me away from the internet for a little while. I need to find something too.
Could I interest you in crochet?
I do not have the patience for crocheting, and I know that out the gate.
That's fair. That is fair. It does require a lot of counting that I'm not always the best at.
Oh, God, yeah, no. Any math whatsoever that can't be done automatically for me? Not gonna happen.
Not so much math, but counting. Which
for me that counts for math.
It's okay. It's okay. We understand.
Yeah.
What have you been up to?
Well, aside from not being able to count or spell, apparently, as I've
or
learned,
speak.
or speak in general, apparently, good lord, or keep track of when I've actually started recording things or not.
What are you talking
It's also-
about? This is the first take.
Oh yeah, this is the first take that we've done for this, for sure. Or like 3 hiccups before we got going here. Similarly, a lot of work. Have gotten to get back into gaming a bit more again too, which has been very nice. In the spirit of what we're talking about today, I've been putting a lot of hours into the Final Fantasy VII remake that came out a little while ago. Yeah, because I upgraded my PlayStation Plus account, and it just came with it. So I was just like, oh, I never got to play this when I was younger, when the original game came out. I do love the Final Fantasy series, so I was like, let's give this a try.
Nice.
It is so JRPG. I fucking love it so much. Like, it's just... Everything is melodramatic as hell and over the top, but it's really well done. The music's great. It looks fucking gorgeous. Just for, like, how nice it looks, I would recommend if you could look it up. Just, like, looking up, like, clips from it. It's such a good-looking game. And then the Spider-Man 2 game, finally got it. Been playing that. I don't know if that was happening last time, too. But also just an excellent game.
Nice.
Just really just making excellent use of my PS5 lately.
Very
That's kind
nice.
of what I've been on. Yeah.
Outside of gaming, what have you been up to?
Outside of gaming, it's been a lot of just like... It's been a lot more just like being able to just like having more time. My work schedule has finally changed back again. So I actually have weekends again to go and do things, which has been a big thing of what's been going on, is just being able to just say yes to things if they come up randomly.
Yeah.
And just go like, yeah, like a couple weeks ago now, I got to go to the aquarium for my sister's birthday.
Aww.
And then my other sister hit me up and was like, I'm doing just a party at my place if you want to come afterwards. And I was like, I can actually fucking just go and do that without needing to try to like coordinate with people at work and shit like that. Just be able to go out.
Ah, what a feeling.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Other than that, though, just living in the political hellscape right now. That is our country, which has always been fun. Looks a bit better right now than it did a few weeks ago.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel where there was not.
We do feel hopeful. I do actually feel like hopeful about our political.
Me too.
The way I put it online. So just if you're not from this country or you just aren't paying attention literally at all right now, our current president Joe Biden stepped down from the election, and the vice president Kamala Harris has taken his spot and is going to be running primarily. And the way that I put it was that it was like, I haven't felt this like such an upswing in hope since we did the Barbenheimer double feature, and I went from Oppenheimer to Barbie. Was kind of the way that I put it there.
Yeah, that's a very apt description of the Switch.
You know, like I feel like that's a pretty good way to put it. I feel like it's a nice way to put it. Trying to think anything else really to just like update personally on. I don't really have. I'm trying to. I got no like projects in the back. We're working on another podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Separate
Nice.
from you.
Nice.
Working on something else with a couple of friends, more focused
Very
on
cool.
film.
Very cool.
We got an episode down that we think is gonna be releasable. This one's just been a lot of like trial and error, and a lot of just kind of like,
Gotcha.
well, let's try it this way, let's try it this way, let's try it this way, and just like it just we haven't quite found our like main focus for it yet.
Are you filming it?
No, we're actually not. It's gonna be a pure
just audio
pure
only?
audio podcast.
Okay, I was thinking about that. I was like, man, if I was trying to film a podcast about film, I feel like a lot of film opinions would get involved in the process of filming it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're a little. I mean, we obviously have help from our wonderful producer.
Absolutely.
But I have like next to nil film opinions. So I'm sure that that's helpful for this podcast. Very cool. I didn't talk about what I've been doing game-wise.
Yes, let's go back to video games, please.
No, I just talked about myself. I have been playing.
You've got a lot more going on personally than I do
Well,
right now, so
yes,
there's a lot more to catch up on in that vein.
I'm a very busy boy.
Yes.
But I have been playing the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake.
Oh my god.
That's recently come out. So
Fantastic.
I
I'll
did
keep it
prepare kind of for this.
Yeah, great. Love it.
episode. But it's just a true remake. It's just like improved, more quality of life improvements. Graphics improvements. It's not rewritten or anything, and it's just classic Paper Mario from back in the day. And I loved Thousand Year Door. It's such a solid game. So been very fun to play through it again.
That's still on like a list of things that I know that I would probably enjoy the game just based on like what I've seen from it. So that one's still definitely on my personal list too. I know. I'll get there eventually. Okay, I have such a backlog of other games too.
I know.
Just played Jedi Survival finally.
Oh, did I?
That's it's the whatever the sequel. I think it's called. I think it's
the
Jedi
sequel to Fallen Order.
Yes, the sequel to Fallen Order.
Yeah, Jedi Survivor. Okay,
Yes,
yeah. Cool.
Fantastic game.
Yeah.
Fantastic game. Couldn't believe the hate that I got. It was so good. I loved it so freaking much.
I've also been wanting to pick up Cult of the Lamb again.
Yes.
I think we've mentioned it on this show. We should cover it for an episode because it's such a cool, unique game.
I'd be down for it. It'd be a good excuse for me to finally play it because it's another one I've heard very good things about, and normally would not be the kind of game that's in my wheelhouse too. So it kind of forced me to expand my horizons a little bit more in that sense.
Good show.
I'm trying. I'm doing my best.
That's all I've got. Are you ready to talk about Tomb Raider?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Now that all of the pleasantries and catching up are done and out of the way here, let's dive into what our main topic for today is going to be: remakes. Now, as I said before, we're in that time where we're either seeing the continuation of franchises like Final Fantasy, or we're getting reboots of specific titles, like, well, with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
We have quite a few examples of this in the remakes slash reboot sphere: Resident Evil, Dead Space, Final Fantasy. And I just want to say I'm really a fan of all of these. I've played through the remakes of all these as well as like original versions of them too. I just wanted to try to pick something here that was going to be like a prime example all around to me that was like a good example of like the reboot remake era that we're in. And to me, not like the correct way to do it, but sort of like a direction that is available that I think was taken very, very well with it. And that is, of course, with the remake of Tomb Raider. So, if you don't know, the 2013 Tomb Raider game follows one, Lara Croft, who was heading out on her first real expedition to find the legendary city of Yamatai. Heading into the Dragon's Triangle, their ship, the Endurance, is hit by a violent storm and sunk to the bottom of the sea. But Laura and the rest of the survivors are left stranded on the very isolated island of Yamatai. Now, Laura must work to uncover the mysteries of the island, but, and more importantly, as she learns, her own survival.
Bum, bum, bum.
This is a pretty early example of remakes, going back to 2013 now.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a while ago.
It's a while ago. Yeah. And just to categorize it too, it is more than just a remake of one of the original games. It is a full brand new overhaul towards it. There have been a lot of arguments online as to purists have argued like, well, does this even really still count as a Lara Croft game anymore with like how many changes have happened here. Yeah. But it is one of those things where it's just like it's a really good example to me of like being able to take something that is recognizable, because even if you've never played the games before from the originals, you know the name Lara Croft, you know the title Tomb Raider.
Sure.
Which does bring me into my next point there too, just to ask you, what's your experience with Tomb Raider in general?
I think I had the original Lara Croft Tomb Raider for the PS1.
Yep. That would have been about the right time, yeah.
And I don't think I could get past the first level.
I have a theory about the original Tomb Raider games.
Yeah.
Is that everybody had them. Everybody played them.
No one could play them. No.
Collectively, 6 people have beaten the originals.
Yeah.
Because even as a kid, I recognized, like, this is janky and not optimal for play style at all.
Yeah.
They came out in the same time as, like, Crash Bandicoot, and somehow couldn't quite get the 3D platformer thing to work.
Yeah, and that was my thing. I was coming from games like Mario 64 and Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 that were like pretty good for the time, and the controls were not nearly as janky as Lara Croft. So when I tried to pick up and play Lara Croft, because I had it, and I was a kid with nothing but time on my hands,
right?
I was frustrated because I was like, I cannot play this. Like, this is not intuitive. It's not as good an experience as the other games that I'm playing. Why am I wasting my time here? You know, it was like kind of my opinion.
Shouldn't feel like I'm driving a big rig while I'm controlling a character who's supposed to be like all nimble and smooth and cool and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's my experience. Is I tried it once when I was a kid and never picked up the series again.
And that's a totally fair reaction to the originals. As I was not a big fan of the originals even when I was a kid. Despite how much they were marketed towards like prepubescent boys for a while there, with the style, the design of Lara Croft and
I was not having that issue.
Fair enough. But yeah, the remake is just like it's it's still the play style is definitely still there. It is sort of like a platformer third person platformer shooter in a sense, but I don't know. I think it also comes from like the evolution of video games in general too, where it's like at this point we expect not just like better gameplay and like for the look of the game to overall be better, whether that means just like updating graphics or whatnot, but there's a level of like character that we expect a bit more now too. Whereas like back in the day, things could have been a little bit more one dimensional and they could get away with it a little bit more. You know what I mean? But we're living in an era too where it's like, Mario has deep lore to it. And there's like character involvement and stuff like that to where it's like, okay, if we're going to do something again with Lara Croft, it's got to be a little bit more to her than just being like, to kind of put it plainly as it was back in the day, hot lady with big boobs goes and does things. Like was kind of the vibe back in the day. So
very much.
It needs a little bit. I think we're now in a space where it's like it needs a little bit more to it than that. To which one of the things that is both something that there is still like some criticism there as well. But one of the first things that people noticed when they announced the remake of the game was that Lara Croft herself was less of a sexualized character, and I do put that with like an asterisk behind it too.
Yeah,
because one of those things when I did go back to replay it, I was just like, this lady's in the middle of sea. Is she really going to worry about her eyeliner? It's like one of the first things I noticed in the character design.
That's fair. Now there was a movie too, right?
Not to
completely derail the
no,
conversation,
you're good.
But I'm curious
No,
when it times out with the remake.
There have been 3 Tomb Raider movies actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there were 2 original ones with Angelina Jolie and the most recent one with the actors whose name I do not know. The most recent one definitely follows more into like the look and the overall feel of the reboot of the franchise as well. Even like just like the overall design of the character looks very much more like the newer one, whereas the Angelina Jolie one fits more of like the type and look for the original. Yeah, movie didn't do super well from what I remember.
Oh, Lara Croft Tomb Raider was 2001.
The very first one
so
with
well
Angelina Jolie
before
was...
I was just wondering if there was maybe some like writing the coattails of that happened with the remake, because I don't remember when movies come out. But no, not in this case.
Yeah, no, there's a huge gap between well, the first 2 movies were back to back, but then but then past that.
Yeah, most recent Tomb Raider was 2018. So
yes,
yeah,
which I had high hopes for, but I didn't hear too many good things about it, unfortunately. And it does this really cool thing that I love to see in games, and I wish like I saw more and more of it. And this is slowly kind of disappearing, in a certain sense to me, in which that like you sort of see like the elements of like other styles of games kind of get incorporated into like one game to to make it more like immersive experience. The way that this Tomb Raider, the 2013 Tomb Raider starts off is the ship sinks. Like I said, they're kind of describing the plot for it. Ship sinks, you get washed up on an island. Lara Croft is immediately just like knocked out and grabbed by one of the locals, and she starts off the game hanging from the ceiling, surrounded by other bodies that have been like wrapped in these like weird like cloth cocoon things, and she has to figure out, and she's also wrapped up in that herself, and has to figure out how to escape from it. But gets out, drops down onto the floor, and immediately has like a spike from the ground like go through her side.
Jesus Christ.
And she doesn't just like get up and like tough guy it out and just like let's go. She like the first chunk of the game is figuring out how to like to close the wound and like heal that up and stuff like that. It immediately sets you off to be like, one, this isn't gonna be just like you're gonna have to like use different skills to survive and learn to move forward and whatnot. But I also love it because like the game essentially starts as like a survival horror that slowly transitions you into like an action-packed third-person shooter in a really clean way that unless you're really paying attention to that, you don't even catch it. It's really, really well done in that sense.
We do like immersion here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's giving Uncharted a bit, it seems.
It has a lot of it's the chicken and egg thing where it's very much kind of like, well, the remake there's no mistaking that the remake was definitely riding the coattails of the Uncharted success and using a lot of the elements that are in Uncharted that kind of looked at the original Tomb Raider games and went like, well, how do we do something like that but improve on it?
Right.
But it is one of those things where it's just kind of like, well, who was copying who first? You know what I mean?
Right. And I think that's okay for a remake because I feel like probably the remake is the game that they wanted to have made the first time.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And And Uncharted came a lot later.
Yeah.
So could do a lot of the things that they probably wanted to do in development at the beginning, but couldn't because the technology didn't exist or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they went, oh, man, they did it. Yeah. Okay, let's remake our game. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but there's also to the point, too, I think this is part of the evolution of, like, the world of gaming and development and whatnot, too, is that it's, like, to what we talked about earlier with, like, how was the first Tomb Raider game so janky when there were these other examples of similar types of games that did it way cleaner, way smoother. I feel like probably early on there was like, at least in my feeling, there was like a developer thing where it's like, well, we can't just like do what they did or use what they did to like make our thing better and make it work. We have to be completely different and do things completely differently than everybody else. Where I think now there's a lot more of an acceptance to it, where it's a lot more kind of like, oh, well, we saw that, you know, to kind of like use a general example, like how many games I've played that sort of follow the same formula for combat that have like the Batman Arkham games, because they just went like, well, it works really, really well for that. That mechanic would work really, really well here. Why don't we just fucking use that? Like,
which I would argue the Batman Arkham games kind of built off what Prince of Persia was doing.
100%.
And Prince of Persia probably built off something else if we go look back far enough.
We go look back far enough and be like, everything is a stepping stone for something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to go like, oh, they did this. Oh, I could actually use that and do this and this and this and this and this.
Nothing new under the sun anymore.
Truly, yes. My spin was trying to make that more positive, but it's...
No. I'm sorry. I didn't mean that to be a negative thing. No, it's very true. Everybody's building off of what everybody else is doing to make better stuff all the time.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Yeah. And something else, too, for it that I love seeing a lot more now, too, especially with something like Lara Croft, who was, as we kind of mentioned, very one-dimensional. In this one, she's an interesting character in the sense that it's like, I love it when I get protagonists that, like, make mistakes. And that, like, it gets called out in world, just like, you've made a mistake, you screwed up, you got people killed, like the whole thing. And this has been a continuous thing for Lara Croft, even going to the original, is that it's all about, like, trying to... appease or prove something to her father who has passed away and like continue on his legacy, because the whole thing is that he went on this whole like journey trying to find like these like lost cities and like empires and whatnot. Kind of drove him crazy. Some other stuff gets revealed on, but there is slight trigger warning here. It is alluded to that her father committed suicide in the games because of his like lust for discovery and finding these things. And Laura's very much trying to like continue that journey and like sort of like reestablish the Croft name with like some honor and respect to it and whatnot. And a lot of that across the because they essentially rebooted into a new trilogy, and across all of that, even the first game, you see like that same sort of like madness for pursuit and discovery, like sort of like drive a lot of her intentions. And you see people going like, do you care that we're in danger right now? Because it doesn't seem like that's like your main concern here, is that we're all about to die. And it just like, it leads to like really interesting decisions and moments and just like, I don't know, just overall, yeah.
So, for folks that maybe haven't played the game, myself included,
for sure.
This reboot, from the way you've described it, it sounds like they didn't say we're remaking this game like shot for shot and beat for beat.
No.
They said we're redoing the whole thing, like rewrote the script, kind of changed up the writing, but kept the story, like the plot, the same for the most part?
Yes. For the most part, I'd say more than anything, like the core of the character was what got kept intact.
Interesting.
But they just like built layers off of that from there to make it like a more like well-rounded like world and character and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as like the plot goes, are the characters doing the same sort of thing from the original?
No.
Oh, so it's
it's
more of a reboot than a remake.
Very much more in the realm of like a reboot than a remake kind of area.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was just curious because I haven't played any of them.
I got you. Yeah, definitely have to classify it more as of a reboot than a remake. But I still want to talk about it today for this because I think there is like, while we're in the sphere of like games that I love that are in the midst of like getting the remake series continues and whatnot, Resident Evil being a prime example right now. Resident Evil 4 just came out with plans just announced recently for 5 to happen, which I'm so interested to see what they're going to do with that because categorically 5 is not classified as a good game. So I'm interested to see how they try to like change that up or what they end up doing with it and whatnot. But also to kind of be like, you know, just, hey, there is this other option here of sort of being like, if you need to, if maybe you look back on a franchise and go like, this still has life, this still have legs, there's a bunch of shit that isn't gonna fucking fly anymore. Maybe the reboot option is also viable and accessible for you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. I I feel like everything is getting rebooted right now.
It's true.
Like it's like the big thing, not even just in video games, like in all media right now.
Yeah.
Like movies are getting remakes, or series are reviving. TV, it's happening all over the place.
Yeah, apparently we're getting another fucking Office TV show, which I'm just like, why? Why?
It could be good. You never know.
It could be good, but I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 writers out there in Hollywood with like a really good TV show script, and we're doing another Office. It's fine. It's fine.
I find it very interesting that everyone is deciding like, oh, let's revive old IPs now.
Yeah, which is always like, to me, it's the positive negative effect of that to me too, is that I do love seeing certain things get another life to them, especially in the world. I've always argued for it more in the world of video games, because it's like you said before, is that it's like sometimes you can talk about how it's like, well, due to limitations of the time and technology and whatnot, they weren't able to do everything they wanted to do with the original, i.e. like something like with Resident Evil or Dead Space as well, I'd say is a prime example of like, well, now that things are better and we kind of really know what we're doing now, we have a second chance to give this thing the life that it deserves here. Or with something like this, where it's just like this thing still has legs, but it just needs an overhaul to like the original like idea of it. I think this is a good one too. With a lot of other stuff, I'm just like, are we just like dead on ideas? You know what I mean? Just like, is everything just such a wash that is just like we're either doing remakes or reboots of like older things and whatnot? Because that to me is like the trepidation. But even in the world of video games, I'm like, I don't want to just see nothing but old IPs.
I think I'm having this thought, and I think it's noteworthy. I think that video games in particular as a medium have a life that is much longer than other pieces of media. Yeah. Because there are still people out there that are playing like the original Legend of Zelda.
Oh yeah.
First
God, yes.
one. Like to this day, every day.
Yeah.
And you can say that about just about any video game in existence right now. I think that video games live far beyond like a TV show or a movie. Yeah. So I think it's a lot easier for games to be kind of rebooted because there's already going to be a group of people, a community of people that are like, oh my God, my favorite game.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, thank you so much, because while I found the Lara Croft original games to be janky as hell, I'm sure that there are people out there that are like, what are you talking about? That's my favorite game ever.
Yes.
And we're probably over the moon that a reboot was happening.
Yeah, oh yeah, super psyched about it. Or, like a lot of people, did not like the reboot. Where a lot of people were not fans of it. There were a lot of cries of, it was so weird. It fell into another one of those things I remember looking online where it was just like, somehow this game is both sexist and woke propaganda. Like, it somehow managed to fit into both areas here.
And that always how it goes.
It's just like, wow, you managed to do both. That's impressive to me.
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of commentary in terms of like, and it's something that our friend Connor and I have gone back and forth into, because he also is familiar with this game, about how brutal some of like the cinematic deaths for Lara Croft are. Like, when like there's a lot of stuff where it's like, she's just tumbling down the side of like a mountain, like when she gets caught in like an avalanche and she's just like slipping and sliding and whatnot. If you make a left turn, you will get impaled on a set of spikes that are just kind of there. And not just like, slam ragdoll body into it. You see just like one go through her neck and then up the other side. And you watch her in this little cutscene of her just going like grasping and like, yeah, lots of fun stuff like that. Or like, but the other argument for me too is, but the argument that I've seen and that I hold to it is that it's like, well, I've seen these similar brutal death cutscenes for men in video games for a lot of years. I'm not saying that like, well, now women have to get it too, but I just mean like, if you would hold back for one but not hold back for the other, to me that's also a little sexist.
Yeah, I think it's gruesome no matter how you slice it.
No, it's definitely brutal and gruesome.
Yeah,
for sure. But again, it's like, for me, and this also comes from like the survival horror aspect of it too, was that it's like, I need to feel like there are stakes.
Yeah.
For me to not want my character to die. Beyond just like, it's annoying to just like keep going back into the same thing over and over and over again.
Fair enough. So tell us more about the gameplay of Lara Croft, the reboot, because I don't really know. I mean, I know you're running, jumping, climbing, and raiding tombs, I assume.
Oh yeah, there's much a tomb to be raided in the game. The game does this really good thing where it's like it's figured out just kind of like, okay, well there are we could put everything that involves Lara Croft into different boxes of gameplay that can be separate, but then at times will like kind of come together in different senses and whatnot. So the main boxes that you have are just sort of like the running around, like parkour, like platforming aspect to it.
Sure.
There's the like third person, like jumping from cover to cover, like shooting at people, like third person shooter aspect to it. And then there's where you get into this starting to be like the combination of things, which is the puzzle aspect of the game, which is the tombs, in which in order to unlock and find like upgrades for your weapons and your gear and stuff in these various tombs you go through. Which is a little bit of like a funny element to me in the game, where it's just like, this tomb is over 1,000 years old and from this ancient civilization. You open it up and you find a piece of a gun, and it's like, hold on, what happened here?
Video game logic.
I know, I love it so much. Going through a dungeon and you're just like, I need health. Oh look, there's just a whole ham that hasn't rotted or nothing's wrong with it. I just go eat this ham. Cool, okay,
Gauntlet
sweet.
logic.
Exactly. Similarly,
Yeah.
But yeah. But it's like, that's where you kind of get to like this sort of the beginning of like the combination things, because that involves like the parkour, like platforming aspect of jumping around and running around, using like the physics engines and the weight calibrations to move things around and distinguish things and whatnot. And just like, and then by the end of the cool thing is that all these things eventually line up to where by the end of the game, you are like running, shooting, solving puzzles, like figuring out where things can go, like all sort of simultaneously at once. And it doesn't feel overwhelming for you as a player, because it's all been like leading up to, it's all been sort of like built on and training you sort of like for
you get better and better at each different aspect.
At each different aspect, to where when they all come together, you're like, oh, I know what they want me to do here. I know what this one's here, and I can do this and this and this.
Gotcha. Now, playing through in the reboot, are the mechanics and the gameplay better? Is there anything that like stands out, like, oh my god, this aspect?
Oh my god, everything from, again, the little bit that I did play from the original as a kid to this. It was such an improvement, but even if you didn't have that comparison, people who have just blind played this game, not having played the original Tomb Raider games, the gameplay aspect is one of the things that gives this game series the most respect that it does.
Nice.
It's so clean. It's so wonderfully intuitive to jump into. And there's just it's another thing that involves just like a great progression of it too. One that's good for the player because it lets you get used to it and like amp up yourself to things without just throwing you in blind. But just like the game starts off to where it's like it makes it feel like that walking across like a log between like two sets of cliffs feels very, very harrowing and scary. Something else too for the game does really well is like that depth, that like feeling of like heights and actually giving you that like sense of like vertigo. It does like really simple little tricks to where like even just like climbing certain ladders and like having Lara Croft just like look down, you as a player just kind of go like,
you're sort of feeling one-to-one with the character.
Feeling very connected with this character. Yeah. Which it does. That's the thing too. Is like the connection between you and playing as Lara Croft is so like well done. And I still really want to know just like what that art craft is for video game design. Of like, because it's something else beyond just like, well, it's designed well and we created a good character. There's something else that makes you feel just like walked into it.
I'm sure the better analysts than us have a word for that feeling of feeling like connected to the character.
Yeah.
We talked about this in our Outlast episode.
We did.
We talked about when things are happening to the character, like bad things are happening in Outlast to the character, you feel like it's happened to you.
Yes.
You know, like whether that's like, trigger warning, your fingers getting chopped off.
Completely chopped off.
Or like you finally get to the thing and then the elevator comes the dumbwaiter comes like crashing down and you can't get the thing anymore and you're like, no, like, yeah. It's that feeling.
Very similar to with this, there's a section in the game in which, like I was talking about with she has to climb a radio tower to make a connection to try to get like this, to try to just like put out a broadcast to be like, Mayday, please come save us.
Right.
And they actually get a plane that's going overhead. They're like, oh yeah, we could drop down, pick everybody up. Lightning hits the plane and it crashes, of course, because we can't just have our heroes just get rescued and taken off like that.
Never.
There's so much more that has to happen to them. But I remember playing it and generally having the moment where I was like, even as someone who knows formula enough to know, this isn't the end of the fucking game.
Right.
When I watched the plane crash, I felt myself go, no. I wanted them to get out. I wanted them to survive and just like have a normal life.
Yeah. I think that feeling could be considered like buy-in, you know, like the buy-in from the player or the observer.
Yeah.
How is combat in the game? good, smooth.
It's super smooth. It's super clean. I love something that gives you a really difficult like combat aspect to where it's like, hey, you could just do your best to try to run and gun your way out of this. Or if you take a second, look around, and again, just like trying to like combine skills of things and whatnot of like, because one of the things within the puzzle aspect of the game is looking at your environment and going like, okay, what can I change? What can I move? What can I do? Da 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 da. But then those elements will show up outside of the puzzle pieces too. So like in a lot of things, there's a lot of stuff with like throwing like old school lanterns at these like big things that are hanging up. So part of it burns down and it moves and collapses and does things and whatnot. You'll see elements of the cloth that it shows there, like on the outside of like the cover where enemies are hiding. And if you clock that, and this is like simple gameplay mechanic stuff, but I love the way it's introduced and used because it makes you go like, okay, I could either just keep waiting for that guy to dive out of cover or set his cover on fire and either hit him too or force him out of cover, and then I can take my shots at him.
Interesting. Is that something that the game teaches you, or is that something that the player discovers?
It's something that it lets you discover, but the game is so good in its design that I'd be hard pressed to find anybody who like missed that element.
It. Gotcha.
You know what I mean? But there's no like, at least if I remember right, there's no like moment where it's like it suddenly cuts to a tutorial where it just like, shows you. It's kind of like, now remember, you've seen this before, and you could do this with this and this and this. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that the game like lets you intuitively figure out too. Which
That's
I really,
good. That's
really
good
like.
design. That's a mark of good design where it's like we're gonna specifically program this in where like the player is probably going to throw fire at the thing, and then they'll discover naturally on their own, they think, that they can burn that too.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good design.
Yeah,
because it makes you feel like you discovered it.
Yeah, it's way better if you could let your players just like figure it out on their own and let them feel smart about it.
Yeah,
rather than
Yeah, it's good design. Cool. I mean, everything you've described sounds like I want to play this game. I would probably really like it.
Really, really enjoy this game.
I should probably also play the Uncharted games. I probably also really like those.
Yeah, definitely. I would say so. I've only played the first Uncharted game all the way through.
I haven't played any of them all the way through. I started one and I was like, this is great. And then I don't know, I put it down. I got busy. Yeah.
I got you.
I was much younger and busy.
Yeah, way younger, busy, all these things. Yeah, all valid criticisms and reasons and whatnot.
Well, we've talked about the reboot itself, how it was different from the original. We've talked about the gameplay, but I want to know about the story because you know how much we like a good story. And the narrative that goes along with it. So what do you have to say about the narrative?
I would say narratively, it's pretty classic, like, hero's journey and, like, the old school, like, formula sense of it and whatnot. Sure. You know, it follows somewhat, and it is very much that thing of just kind of like, well, who is this character at the beginning of the story versus who is this character at the end of the story? But it's one of those things where it's just like, it's, you know, the quote-unquote twists that happen in the game, you could catch them a mile away. They introduce the big baddie at the very beginning of the game, and you clock him immediately, and you go like, "That's our fucking villain."
The Scooby-Doo formula.
Yes, he's acting too weird. He's being too just like unthreateningly creepy to be like to not be the bad guy. All the characters are like different archetypes of other like characters we've seen in other things and whatnot. But it's one of those things where I'm just like, but you did it all really, really well. So I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you know, it's like, yeah, I've technically seen this story before, you know, but I don't care. I love Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. But yeah, it is that classic. It is a classic of just like watching this hero just like trying to survive, but also slowly uncovering this mystery of like how there was this ancient. This ancient like it was a small ancient island of like, I think it was originally Japanese people who came to it, discovered it. There was a princess on it that had a connection to, who was like supposed to be the reincarnation of some sort of goddess and whatnot, and that therefore made her eternal. And the reason why people keep getting trapped on this island is that she is trying to find another vessel for her spirit to go into, because she's been trapped in this sort of like limbo between worlds and whatnots. Yeah, so it's also very Indiana Jones in a certain
Your
sense
classic
as well.
limbo spirit stuck between worlds story. Yeah.
It sounds weird, but the game does. It's another thing too, where it's like narratively speaking, to give it credit, it lays all this stuff out that is very weird and out there in a way that you just kind of go like, "Oh, that makes sense."
Makes total sense.
Makes total sense, but
She needs another body.
gotta have another body, man. Gotta have it. But it also just it does enough to where like it does these cool things where like it nods to the originals in ways. Like there's a lot of there's stuff because like I think everyone kind of knows the image of Lara Croft like standing there with two guns.
Yeah, definitely.
Is a pretty classic
pretty
thing.
iconic.
Yeah.
Image.
This one is a little bit more realistic with combat because it's I don't know if anybody realizes it, but in the real world you would never want to shoot two guns at once like that. Just wouldn't work out. It just really wouldn't work out too much.
I don't want to shoot even one gun.
You know, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But like the game ends with you just like lighting up the bad guy while you're holding two different guns.
Okay.
So just like cool little nods to the original like that. You know, you have stuff where you have Lara Croft falling into a temple and just going, I hate tombs. Like it's just
You're the Tomb Raider.
I know, exactly. Exactly. It's the irony of it. But just like, little obvious things like that. And there's just, I don't know, there's just so many just like I described at the beginning of it, just like having her start off the actual like game part of it, surrounded by dead bodies. Mm-hmm. You want to set your tone as fast as you can in any story that you're telling.
Yeah.
And that just like that perfectly sets the tone for it to me.
And I think setting up like the adventurer that's on a boat and then it capsizes in a storm, I also think that helps set the tone because it immediately launches you into this is about survival now.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
This is about everything's been taken away. We have no way like off the island anymore. This is about finding safety and security and now that's my job because I am playing that character.
Yeah.
Totally.
The game is, I think the tagline for the game is a survivor is born. If I remember correctly. And that's just like, wonderfully sets the tone for the whole thing. And just, again, just like the biggest thing I could give the game is just like how interesting of a character they make Lara Croft.
Yeah.
From somebody who was originally just like so one-dimensional and kind of like one note. Like in the original game, all of her stuff is either just like...
I'm sure she had at least 5 polygons.
I'm sure at least. But they were all right here was the problem.
Yeah.
It's a lot of focus in like one area
like
for polygons.
1, 2.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. But someone whose like whole identity in the original game was like either just spouting off exposition or just like cheesy, quippy one-liners kind of, to see that evolve into somebody who feels much more fleshed out and much more realized. Someone with a lot of like side to them.
Yeah.
Just is much more like enjoyable of an experience for me than watching like the one-note character go through and like not experience any change or like any sort of like trepidation or worry or mistakes even really. Just like watching somebody make mistakes is an interesting thing I was watching with it was a podcast on Dropout where they were discussing the virtue of nat 20s versus nat 1s, and the argument was about how it's like nat 1s are more interesting because mistakes are more interesting to watch people get through.
Totally.
Now, as a player of D&D, I hate nat 1s, but unfortunately, narratively speaking, it is correct. But yeah, it's just it really is just like a testament to how it is that you could take something that's older like this and be like, well, how do we upgrade it but also make sure it works again, but give it just a lot more like of a life to it than it never really got before. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Give it the life that they probably again wanted to give it originally.
I mean,
maybe. Let's give the developers a little credit.
There was an old also relevant news right now. The gaming magazine Game Informer is shutting down. A bit of a bummer.
Rip Game Informer.
I was really sad about it because I used to get their magazines monthly. I loved Game Informer so much.
Yeah.
I read an article and one of the things ages ago, before the reboot happened. They were just discussing the legacy of Tomb Raider in general, and there was an interview part with one of the original developers, and he was talking about how the importance to Lara Croft is her sexuality and how sexy the character is and whatnot, and I was just...
Ow.
I didn't clock it as a kid, but I remembered it later on, like years later, and I was just like,
swing and a miss.
Bit of a swing and a miss. So it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know, maybe they wanted more to it. Maybe they didn't.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
in terms of the gameplay itself,
Maybe
not the
they
character.
definitely wanted like I doubt they'd want people sitting here talking about how janky the gameplay used to be.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want to discuss about this specific reboot or any reboot?
Any reboot?
I mean, like maybe notable reboots. Like, what's your favorite reboot aside from this?
Ooh, outside of this, well, the other that's sort of interesting because it's like kind of what we talked about. It's like to me, this is one of the few like true reboots of a franchise that I can think of that got like a full overhaul. Everything else, like, well, arguably the Resident Evil games have been a reboot because the gameplay style has completely changed from how it used to be from the original tank controls going into the third-person shooter. That's more of what it is. And Wolfenstein is a great example, actually. Now that you pulled this up, Wolfenstein is a really good because that one really stayed with like the spirit and design of the original, but added a lot more to it that I think that you could definitely tell that was just like, well, they couldn't have gone into all of this with the technology and the stuff they had on hand at the time.
It's hard. I'm having a hard time kind of differentiating between what's like, oh, well, this is just the next generation of the game versus is it a reboot? Like, how long does a franchise have to be dead before the next game makes it, oh, we're rebooting the series, I wonder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very, very true. Or in a case here, like what it's showing here with like something like Mortal Kombat, I'm just like, did it
ever die? That's my thing, yeah.
It did because the original company that made the original Mortal Kombat games, Midway, went out of business.
Oh, fair.
So, yes, as the original company disappeared, absolutely, it definitely
That's
counts.
fair.
But it's like, it's still a third-person fighter. Like, you know what I mean? It's still the same, like, seven and whatnot. The only difference is that but they still counted as Mortal Kombat 9 when they did the reboot for it.
Right. I guess, I mean, I've never really played Mortal Kombat growing up, so it's hard for me to differentiate, like, oh, yeah, that was a dead series and now it's alive again, versus, oh, they're making the 9th one.
As somebody who paid attention to Mortal Kombat tangentially growing up,
yeah,
I kind of got to see the descend of them, like, desperately trying to make it relevant and interesting again.
Gotcha.
So it's, yeah.
This list says that Breath of the Wild is a reboot. And I'm like,
I don't see how.
I don't know.
I mean, only in the sense that I guess it's like, it is very different than the last couple of Zelda titles, but I wouldn't go. So it's not like Zelda was struggling in any fucking way.
No, it was not. So
God of War, I guess, is technically a reboot because there's another one too where it's like the gameplay system and sort of the setting and the tone completely changed from the last God of War game to the ones they have now. It does feel like a very, very different game.
Yeah, but this is what I'm getting at. Like, video games have a life well beyond their initial release. You know? So it's hard, I suppose, to differentiate. This is very clearly like a reboot.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Illustrated. But yeah, video games are the best.
Yeah. No, I'll always love
They'll
to
live
see...
forever.
No, I mean, like, you're not incorrect on that because it's like what you said. It's like we're talking about, like, this is a game that came out over 11 years ago now. Yeah. 2024, so like 11 years ago now at this point. And I just replayed through it again, and I still absolutely fucking love it. So it's like the shelf life, if you make a good game, is going to be way longer than I think almost any other piece of, like, media in general for me. Because it is always being able to go back and like try to and get like a slightly different experience from it, or just relive through it. But like it's so much more interactive. Like it still feels more involved in other stuff. But I also think to that too, though. I think it's a testament to. There's a lot of discussion right now in the gaming sphere in terms of like where the industry is right now because gamers are becoming much more clever in terms of paying attention to things and whatnot, and they're really starting to notice that like there's been a bit of a quality dip in a lot of stuff that has come out recently, and a lot of that has happened due to people being fucking selfish and just wanting to squeeze as much money out of something as they can while spending as little money as possible.
Yep.
So
America.
America. But. I mean, my hope from that, especially with, like, if we continue having things like this where we discuss games that are older now and, but we still talk about and how much we love and how much we want to play them, the lesson to be learned here is to invest your money wisely into a project like this because you'll get a better return out of it when people who keep playing it for over a decade will want to keep coming back to stuff like this rather than trying to churn something out and trying to get something new out every single year. that you made cheaply and on the fly because you had all the assets ready, but like it's still glitchy and buggy and poorly written or doesn't have any writing to it fucking at all.
So true. Well, okay, so then looking towards the future,
Yes.
what games do you think need a reboot? Or like what would you reboot if you could? If you could point your finger at a game and it boom, instantly rebooted, what would you do?
Game that needs a reboot. I'm trying to think what would be like a good example. Something that really, really, really needs it.
And again, not like a remake, like a reboot. Like
Yeah,
we're doing
reboot,
a brand
full
new,
overhaul.
it's a new story, not been done before, we're just kicking it into gear.
Yeah. It would be you scroll past it and this could get me in trouble.
What?
I think Sonic really needs
Really?
it. I really think Sonic needs it.
I get, but also they've been doing games like
They have been doing games, and I heard honestly very, very good things about I think it's Sonic Frontiers, which is the full like open world Sonic game that they came out with a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also one for me too, where it's like, you know, as a kid I was able to beat Super Mario games. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like there's a level of intuitivity there. Never once in my life have I beaten a Sonic game. Never once has it happened. No. Not once. And part of me...
Skill issue. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I think it's an inconsistency with what the games fucking want me to do.
That's fair. That's fair. I should have had an answer prepared for this. I'm trying to think of like games that are like that. I mean, Gauntlet needs a reboot pretty bad, or just a remake, or just a port to the Switch, please, Nintendo. But
and not so much answer the question as far as like you making a desperate call for what it is that you would really like to see.
It's the only reason I asked you is just because I wanted to look in the camera and beg Nintendo to remake.
Give me a Gauntlet remake, please.
I fucking love that game.
I only ever played it a little bit. What would even be like the overhaul remake of Gauntlet look like though? Like,
I don't know. Just do the game again, but make it better with better graphics and like. I don't need a new story. The story's fine.
Yeah.
I just want a fun couch co-op, like top-down third-person shooter. You know, in the vein of like Diablo.
Yes.
Honestly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Oh, I actually have a better answer for mine.
Oh,
because
go ahead.
because it is a game that I love, but I think didn't get like its proper time in the sun. It was a game called The Darkness that came out when the 360 first came out.
Okay.
Excellent game. You're like a mafia hitman who gets possessed by this weird demon who gives you like extra powers and shit like that. Yeah. But it was also like one of the first games that had like a very like emotionally charged and involved story as well too, because it involves like him trying to balance things out with his girlfriend and like his very like sketchy lifestyle and job that he has and whatnot, and just a really interesting like game like that too. It would just be cool to see something keep the story, keep the characters, keep the overall vibe for it, but just like an upgrade, sort of like, again, just like a very much a remake treatment would be more what I'd be looking for there.
Yeah, definitely. I'm coming up short. I had one in my mind and then it disappeared.
And then it went away from you?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I think just sort of, if we can wrap things up here a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we've discussed this, like they're just, I think overall what I've been at least trying to kind of like convey here from my opinion here is that if you are going to either remake or reboot something, obviously money's going to be a contender in the whole thing with the society that we live in. It has to be like, well, this is going to make money and whatnot. But like, if you're going to do it, if you are going to do it, my plea to the developers out there would be to keep in mind, what are you trying to say with this remake? What are you going to change with this remake?
Yeah.
And is it going to make it better? But also don't be afraid to look at the past and be like, we can improve on this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because nostalgia's great, but man, is it a heavy fucking drug sometimes too, and can hold people back from like a progress in creativity and trying new things and doing new things and whatnot. And that was ultimately why I did pick Tomb Raider for today to like be the main focus of it, because like, you want to talk about drastic changes from how it used to be. It is a prime example.
Night and day.
It is a prime example to me, because like even with something like Resident Evil, it's like they took a game mechanic that they did end up using later on in their game series and whatnot, just applying it to the games that didn't used to have that involved with them, which is the third-person shooter aspect versus the tank controls.
I'm sorry, I remembered what.
Yeah, go, do it.
Rayman. I want Rayman rebooted.
Yes!
Make it happen.
Do it!
And we've made it to the bonus round. We've got a fun little game that we're going to play. Our producer, Caitlin, who's off camera, is going to feed us some randomly generated video game titles. And we're going to come up with a video game to go along with them. So I think we need a genre.
Yes.
And we need like a style of game. And then like a 2-sentence pitch about what the game is. Yeah?
Love it. I love it.
Okay, great. So let's get the first. You want to take the first one?
Let's jump into Make That Game.
Yeah.
Figure I have to give it a title.
Okay, right. Let's do it. Ready? We're going to jump into Make That Game! Yay!
Streamer effects.
Yeah. Applause sounds.
Yes.
Yeah. You want to take the first one?
Sure.
All right. Let's hear it.
All right. Our first game is entitled Arm of Freedom.
Arm of Freedom. Oh, okay. Got this.
Yeah.
This is a first-person shooter.
Yep.
It is a Call of Duty
Yep.
clone.
Yep.
For sure.
Absolutely.
You are
A bad Call of Duty clone.
a really bad Call of Duty clone. And the reason why it's so ridiculously bad is because you are playing run-of-the-mill soldier, like Marine, something like that, dropped into a combat zone. But as soon as you get there, your arm gets chopped off in the middle of combat. But instead of it getting replaced with like a cybernetic arm or something like that, like we have seen in actual Call of Duty games before, it's a real thing. You play as a guy with a robot arm. It's actually one of my favorite games. But instead of that, just the head of an eagle is attached to that part of the arm. It's a full bald eagle right there because that's why it's called
Legend of Zelda Tears of Freedom.
And that is my pitch for, what was it? It was Arm
of Freedom.
Arm of Freedom? I think I did pretty good.
That's exactly, yeah, totally.
And you can still fly with the eagle. It just looks weird because you just stick an arm up and it just looks like it's an eagle carrying a whole man somehow.
Is there a specific attack that is associated with this eagle arm?
Yeah, it's the Freedom Strike. It's from that aerial position flying through the air. You suddenly just dive bomb down straight into combat, and as the eagle is screeching freedom and everybody, you're shooting people with the other arm as well. And it does like a blast effect on the ground and knocks people back.
I'm sorry, you've described the greatest game ever. Oh my gosh, too funny.
Right.
I am not going to have as good a time with mine. That was so good.
You don't know? You haven't gotten your title yet.
Yeah,
Hold on.
let's hear it.
I had nothing until I got the title, so.
Yeah. And some of them are kind of funny, and some of them are, more serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so, Brendan, yours is Frozen Woods.
Frozen Woods.
Ooh.
This is a children's video game on the computer. This is the characters of Frozen teaching you how to like spell and stuff. So it's like there's like little math games. You go through the woods and all the characters are there, and it's like Olaf and he's like catch the letters as they fall, and you spell words and stuff. Disney education.
It's the old Encyclopedia Brown games, but
Yes.
just with the Disney characters.
Or like the Clue Finders
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah, educational on the computer for the children.
Okay, good to know we're allowed to just pull an existing IP for these pitches as well.
I said the first thing that came to my mind. And that is one of the first rules of improv.
It's true. That's true. It's true.
All right, here's the next one.
All right.
Crystalscape.
Crystalscape. Okay, this is definitely like one of those just like really fucking like crappy, just like old computer like puzzle games that you would get where you're just like, it's called Crystalscape. Yeah, so you just like play as like an amorphous, just like purple crystal that has to just like go around this like one piece of map, and the way you just go through it is by picking up and collecting other crystals that attach
get
to
bigger.
you, and it makes you like a little bit bigger. But the
It's
more
like Snake, but crystals.
But the more crystals you build, the more crystals you build onto it, the more the globules want to come at you because they're attracted to the bigger, shiny crystals.
Yeah.
So the more crystals you collect, the more dangerous it is for you to survive and get through. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. All right.
We're gonna find out in like 3 weeks that someone has
somebody has made these
poached
games.
like 9 of these.
We're just spitting just gold here.
Yeah.
Arm of Freedom coming to a video game store near you soon.
If I see Arm of Freedom, I'm gonna lose my shit.
That's too good.
Royal Death.
Royal Death.
Ooh.
This is a mystery type game.
Yeah.
So like you're a detective in like one of those like dark kind of noir-esque video games where you're like in the town and you're investigating a murder and you like just rolled up, you know, like one of those. I can't think of a title, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. I know what you mean. Right? Where you play the little mini games and like the words appear and you have to like connect the clues. Very much that.
Oh, I was gonna say, is it like the old like Nancy Drew games?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't play those, so maybe.
Oh, okay.
Somebody fill in a title of a game that I'm citing right now. It's like that, and the noir style, absolutely, but it's like set in medieval times. So you're like a noir detective in the medieval times. You roll up, you got a cape and a hood, whatever. You're smoking like a pipe, whatever, and the king has been murdered.
Yes.
So it's that style of game, just set way back and maintaining the noir theme.
I love it.
I'd play it.
That actually sounds like that's a cool game, actually. I'd play the hell out of that game.
Royal Death.
There we go. She got a good game pitch today.
Okay, here we go. Vikings and hauntings.
Vikings and hauntings. Okay.
Incredible.
So this is gonna be like a survival horror type game. It's gonna be similarly toned, not in gameplay, but like in the feeling of it, of something like a Doom kind of game. Where you are playing like this over the top badass character, but you're surrounded by like demon. Well, this one it would be ghosts and stuff like that. You are playing a Viking that is sort of left stranded on an island somewhere. You don't realize the island is haunted until you start exploring around.
Yeah.
And then you have to start, as the Viking, have to start picking up things that have like magical runes and stuff like encased and encrusted in them, and like learning to do magic as a Viking in order to help repel off these like evil spirits and like zombies and ghosts and blah 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 blah.
I love
blah.
this.
Yeah.
I would play that. Hell
Right?
yeah.
Doesn't that sound like
that sounds great.
like fun.
Yeah,
It
Viking
sounds like a
Doom.
solid
Hell
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, all right. It's a great fucking game to play. This is too much fun.
Oh, here we go. Wisdom and sin.
Ooh, wisdom and sin.
That's actually a good title, though.
It
I
really
like that a
is.
lot.
I'm gonna destroy it. Are you ready?
Let's go for it.
This is a text-based adventure.
How fucking dare you?
This is a text-based adventure from like the 80s. In it though, I mean, come on. So yeah, you're like a wizard, and you got to make decisions. For anybody that doesn't know, a text-based adventure is basically like a old school DOS feeding you like a bunch of text that you read, and then you input commands like I turn left at the corner, whatever, you know. So it's that, and you're a wizard, and you're like on an adventure to become the most powerful wizard in the land, and you're confronted with choices that like you could be wise choices and make you a good guy, or they could be sinful and they make you an evil wizard with power, and you have to like navigate the narrative and find out if you're like a good wizard or a bad wizard at the end.
We just spent so long discussing how far we've come with games.
And I threw it way back.
And you decided to be like, no, let's go back to when we had nothing but text.
Yep. Sure did.
Alright, 2 more.
Yeah.
Two more. I'm into it.
Blood droid.
Blood droid!
Incredible.
I mean, I feel like there's such a simple, easy answer here.
Dracula robot.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, is that not what you were thinking?
It's better than what I was thinking. I was just like,
What were you thinking?
another Doom clone, but you're a robot. Like, this is... No,
Okay.
yours makes way more sense. So you're a... Wait a minute. So hold on a second. I gotta think. We just have to... I need an hour to discuss the mechanics on how a vampire robot works. Is it that it was a robot designed to gain its power from draining blood from people, or is it a robot that was bitten by a vampire?
Absolutely
Okay, good.
Absolutely that.
Then yes, you are just okay. I got it.
And now are powered by blood.
Yes.
I couldn't make it any more clear.
Yes, I got it. Okay, this is good. Okay, this is a cyberpunk DLC.
It is.
In which that you play one of the many robots that's in the world, and you are but suddenly you realize that vampires exist.
Yep.
You are attacked by a vampire.
Yep.
And now are on a quest to cure your vampirism, but it's way more complicated because you're also a robot. So it's not as simple as just like getting the cure and then
hard.
like
Nobody wants to talk to you because you're a robot.
I mean,
It's
anyone who's done the mission in Skyrim where you have to cure your vampirism know it's a huge pain in the ass.
it's an issue.
Imagine that multiplied by 50 because now you're a robot. It's just harder because you're a robot.
Such a struggle.
Right? So hard. It's kind of a team one. I liked it. Yeah.
You can help me with the last one too.
All right, last one. Predators and Liberty.
This is the sequel to Arms of Freedom.
Sequel to Arms of
Freedom.
Sorry, the title one more time.
Predators and Liberty.
Predators and Liberty.
It's the crossover. It's the alien. It's the Alien versus Predator and Arm of Freedom crossover.
Yes.
Need I say more?
I think I don't think we need anything else there. I think we're good.
That's so stupid.
Oh my god, that's so wonderfully dumb.
Love it.
Thank you so very much for listening to us discuss Tomb Raider and also just remakes and reboots in general today. Should we talk about other sequels and remakes that need to happen or have happened before? Or is there anything out there that you think deserves a remake / reboot? Let us know in the comments.
And as always, if you have any ideas for future things that we can discuss on our show, send us an email at 3VOpodcastteam@gmail.com and give us your ideas. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the social medias. Are we on Threads yet? No, we're not on Threads yet. Maybe we'll change that. Maybe we won't. I don't know. I don't know where Threads is going. But we're all on there at 3VO Podcast. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to the show. It really makes a difference. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.